looking at Module 4, Lesson 31, which is Problems in Mathematical Terms. So we're going to be looking at real-world situations again and discussing them in mathematical terms. A lot of this is going to sound familiar. Let's look at the picture. How many stores can we go to? Well, it depends how much time we have. So the number of stores depends on how much time. So we actually have two variables here, two things that can change. The number of stores can change, and the amount of time changes. A lot of this, especially this word dependent, should sound familiar. Did you have, when you did your scientific method homework, way back in science, you learned about scientific methods. You learned about variables. You learned about independent and dependent variables. One homework might have been about a rose and a plant growing. So how tall a rose will grow will depend on the amount of sun or the amount of sugar that you put in the water. So the amount of sun or water, that's considered your independent variable. How tall, the height, well, that's dependent on how much sun. So the height is going to change depending upon the amount of sun that changes, okay? Does that make sense? That's what we're going to be looking at today, independent variables and dependent variables. Let's take a look at the first example. Marcus reads for 30 minutes each night. He wants to determine the total number of minutes he will read over the course of a month. He wrote the equation T equals 30D to represent the total amount of time that he has spent reading, where T represents the total number of minutes read and D represents the number of days that he read during the month. Determine which variable is independent and which is dependent. Then create a table to show how many minutes he has read in the first 7 days. So here's what we need to know. It's 30 minutes each night. We know that T represents the total number of minutes read. D represents the total number of days that he read. So first of all, what are the two things that we're comparing here? What are the two units that could be changing, well, that are changing? What are those two units? So we're looking at the number of days. Don't write anything down yet. So we have the number of days that he read. And then we also have the total minutes read. So those are the two things that are going to be changing. Those are my two variables. Does the total number of days depend on the total minutes read? Or does the total minutes read depend on the number of days?
The number of days depends on the number of minutes you read depends on how many days.
Right. So which is my independent variable? What's the thing that's controlling everything?
Days.
Right. The number of days is my independent variable. And the total minutes read depends on the number of days. You're always going to put your independent variable in your first column. So we'll say the number of days is D. We usually put it in parentheses. So that means the dependent variable, I think I'm going to lose this, yeah. So the dependent variable is total minutes read. total minutes read. Let's think of it in terms of an expression. I could say M for minutes, but how am I going to determine what that is?
T, because instead of in the question.
Well, the time equals what? I could say T for time, but what does that time equal?
30.
30 what? Not always. It's not always 30 minutes. T equals 30 times the number of days. Because it's 30 minutes per day. So they want to know the first 7 days. So let's fill this in for the first 7 days. So if he read for 1 day, he read for 30 minutes. If he read for 2 days, 30 times 2 is 60. If D is 3, 30 times D is 90. And keep filling in your chart. So if you read for 7 days, you would have read a total of 210 minutes. That's it. That's it. Lesson learned. Maybe not. We'll try again, just in case it wasn't learned. Any questions on where one of those things came from? Alright, let's try another one. Make sure it sticks. Kira designs websites. She can create 3 different websites each week. Kira wants to create an equation that will give her the total number of websites she can design given the number of weeks that she works. Determine the independent and dependent variables. Create a table to show the number of websites she can design over the first 5 weeks. Finally, write an equation to represent the number of websites she can design in any given number of weeks. So let's find our important information. 3 different websites each week. So what are our 2 variables? What are the 2 things that can change? The 2 units that were, the 2 amounts? What are the 2 things that we're comparing here? What are we looking at? Alright, so we're looking at the number of weeks. And we're also looking at the number of websites she designed. So which is which? Does the number of designs depend on the number of weeks? Or does the number of weeks depend on the number of websites? Which is which? The number of websites is your dependent variable. Because your number of websites, did I say websites or weeks? That's what I meant. Your number of weeks is going to change the number of websites.
That's what she said.
Okay, I apologize. Yeah, okay. Get more. So the first column is your independent variable. Your second is your dependent variable. Now we could say the number of weeks is W. What is the number of websites? What is the number of websites? What is it? How should I label that? Since it's the number of websites, we can call it number of websites designed. I don't want to call it W again. So it's D. We'll call that D. So we want to do the first 5 weeks according to the information. So what is this going to be? Well, over here we're going to do our equation, okay? So how do I decide the number of websites she designed? 1 week is how many?
3.
3. 6, 9, 12, 15. So what is my equation? My weeks equals what? I'm sorry, not my weeks. What does my design equal?
W times week.
Right, 3 times W. We always write the coefficient first. Questions on where any of those came from? All right, let's take a look at the next one. Priya streams movies through a company that charges her $5 a monthly fee plus $1.50 per movie. Determine the independent and dependent variables, God bless. Write an equation to model the situation and create a table to show the total cost per month given that she might stream between 4 and 10 movies. Alright, so first of all, what are the 2 units that we're comparing? What are the 2 amounts that we have? What are we looking at here? What are we looking at?
A monthly fee.
Alright, so we want to look at the total. The total monthly cost. And what's the other thing we're looking at?
Movie.
What about the movie?
The
The number of movies. So which depends on which? Does the number of movies depend on the total cost? Or does the total cost depend on the number of movies? So the total cost is our independent. The number of movies is our dependent. So that's how we fill in our charts. Oh, you're right. What is the matter with me today? I apologize. I don't know if it's the humidity, the heat. I don't know. I apologize. So 4 to 10 movies a month. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, how much is it to rent 4 movies? If it's $1.50 per movie, how much is it for 4 movies? If it's $1.50 for 1, how much is it for 4? What is it? You already have it solved out. Instead of playing with the stuff on the table, use your margin and solve it. What is it? It's always the same hands, and I love who's participating, but I would like more people raising their hands, please. You've got nothing to lose. Take a shot. What is it?
It is $6.
Right, it's $6 to rent 4 movies. However, it's going to cost me more than $6. Why? Before I rent the movies, what are they hitting me with? Yeah, how much? So it's $5 for the month plus the $6 for the 4 movies. So for 4 movies, it's actually going to cost me $11. We can put our variables in. Does everybody see why we got 11? Is anybody not sure how we got 11? Alright, because if it's $5 for the month, $5 plus $1.50 per movie. So we're starting with 4 movies. So $1.50 for 4 movies is $6 plus the $5 membership fee. Okay? So 5 movies would be $12.50. So now we just can keep adding on $1.50 because that $5 fee is just for the month. It's not per rental. equation. So how are we finding out what the cost is? How are we getting that cost? Right, it's $5 plus $1.50 per movie. Remember, per means to multiply. So it's $5 plus $1.50 per movie. Any questions on how we set up that equation? Y and M, Y and. Alright, I have a question. Why is this wrong? Besides the fact that I can't write. Why is that wrong? What would that mean? What does that mean? Why is it wrong? Yeah, that means $5 per movie. Right, but that's not how it works. The monthly fee is just once. They're only charging me that $5 one time. I'm not multiplying it by anything. All right, number 1. Let's take a look at this one. Sarah is purchasing pencils to share. That's so nice of her. Each package has 12 pencils. The equation N equals 12p, where N is the number of pencils and P is the number of packages. Can be used to determine the total number of pencils. So she's buying packages, but we want to know how many pencils. Determine which variable is dependent and which is independent. So first of all, what are the two things that we're working with? What do we have? So we have the number of packages and we have the total number of pencils. Which is my independent variable? Yep. So my total number of pencils is my dependent variable. We know from the directions that the number of packages is P, and we know that the total number of pencils is N, which equals 12 times P. So now I know I'm going to take whatever P is and multiply it by 12. They only want to know for packages 3 through 7, so I'm filling in my table with only those numbers. Does everybody see why I didn't start at 1, or does somebody want me to explain why we didn't start at 1? Okay. So what is 12 times 3?
36.
Yep. Times 4 is 48. 60, 72, and 84. Anything else? No questions? All right, I'm going to pause the recording and let everybody try number 2 on their own. All right, let's look at the answers. So for number 2, it's 4 books for each week, under 6 weeks. So your independent variable is the number of weeks. Your dependent variable is the number of books. Your equation is B equals 4W. So that's what your table should look like. Okay, any questions? The directions did say to write an equation. All right, look at number 3. All right, we've got the golf course, so it's $20 to walk into the golf course, plus $3 for each friend. $3 per friend. So 3F plus 20, because it's $3 times the number of friends plus $20.
So the total number of dollars is 20, and I just added 30.
All right, but that would be if there was one person. We've got 5. So it's 5 friends times $3 each. So 5 times 3 is 15 plus the 20. So do you see why it's 35?
Yes.
All right, so fix it. Yes.
Let's say, give equals 30% of the rate of 504, so we $3 off.
Okay, no, worked it out. And number 4, don't ever apologize for asking a question. All right, so how many notebooks and the total cost? So it's $2 per notebook plus $3 for that one pencil case. Okay, so the total cost is $2 times the number of notebooks plus the $3 for that one pencil case. Always going to be one pencil case no matter what. Okay? And number 5. Oh, there is no number 5. That's it. All right. So we already discussed for the closing which were our independent and dependent variables because you needed to know that to set up the charts. Okay. Tonight you can do your homework right on the homework page because they gave you the tables.